Welcome to Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. A world where coming in second place is not an option, but where principle-centered winning is the only approach.
Good morning and welcome to a new year of Government Contracting Weekly shows, brought to you by Key Solutions. When we broadcast the very first episode back in September, Jim McCarthy, the owner of Key Solutions, presented an introduction and an overview about our goals and aspirations for this first ever program devoted exclusively to government contracting. Now, as we enter a new year, and now that we've gained so many new viewers, we thought it was the perfect time to air this message again. Here's Jim McCarthy.
Good morning. My name is Jim McCarthy and I am Principal Owner and Technical Director of Key Solutions. I'd like to welcome you to our new television show, Government Contracting Weekly. This is a show about government contracting, how to win government contracts and how to win them the right way. It is a show for companies that are doing business with the federal government or who would like to do so. It is also a show for government procurement officials who would like to have tips and suggestions on how to bring out the best that industry has to offer. So I'd now like to give you some context about our show. Government contractors do important work in supporting our nation, developing new products from IT to defense to space exploration to cleaning up the environment. Government contractors are the resource base that our government calls on to get things done. Key Solutions specializes in giving government contractors the winning edge during procurements. We know that success depends on offering the government the product or service that best fits its needs. It should be obvious, but often isn't, that a company can only do that if it fully and insightfully understands the government's needs, wants, and biases. That, of course, means that meaningful dialogue must take place between the parties. Government Contracting Weekly is designed to foster that dialogue. We cannot deal in depth with every government need and every contractor's approach, but we can prime the pump and get the dialogue started. We will also apply experience and lessons learned from our 30 years of winning work from the federal government for our clients. We'll provide tips and insight in how companies can be more successful in this highly competitive marketplace. Throughout the season, we welcome and actively solicit your input. Please visit our website, governmentcontractingweekly.com, to comment on our show segments and to suggest other topics or other speakers that you would like to see. In a minute, I will turn you over to the face of Government Contracting Weekly, Hillary Fordrich. Hillary is the perfect choice to host this show, as she has over a decade at KPMG where she headed global business development, and she has an extensive background in television broadcasting. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll make our program a normal part of your Sunday morning routine. Now, Hillary, over to you.
Good morning and welcome again to Government Contracting Weekly, where each week we aim to bring you specific strategies that will help you as a government contractor win a contract, always using the principle-centered approach. This morning we have with us Elliott Branch, and he's the Senior Procurement Executive at the Navy, and I think you're going to find what he has to say very interesting, not what we normally read about, and some very interesting information. Today we have with us Elliott Branch, who's an outstanding government official, and actually I saw you given the award at GovCon, which was really quite a tremendous accolade.
Well,
Could you tell our audience, because they may not have been there, about that award and about your role today?
Well, the award was a singular honor because it was the Public Sector Partner of the Year Award, which recognized my work with private industry in this business we call government contracting. And that's very, very important because relationships are very, very important in this business.
And I can see you value that. You're very passionate about your relationship with industry. It came across that evening, I could see.
Absolutely. You know, as I said then, we don't build anything in the government except for relationships. We depend on industry to build the things that warfighters use. And my job is to make sure that warfighters have the tools that they need to go off and do the mission and come home safely.
And I could see that commitment throughout everything you said that night, and you certainly, the government contracting community appreciates that. What would you say is right now sort of the #1 issue facing you at the moment in working with contractors?
Well, I think the number one issue for the government as a whole, and certainly for the Navy, is how we squeeze every ounce of value out of a shrinking pool of dollars. I mean, we have been in a national emergency for quite some time now. We've been given the money we needed to prosecute that national emergency. Those national emergencies are coming to an end. The President's military strategy is changing. We're pivoting toward the Pacific. So this is going to call for, especially given where we are with the discussions on the coming austerity, how we in the Navy and how we in government writ large squeeze every ounce of value out of every dollar we get, because we're not going to be getting the number of dollars we've gotten previously.
Right, not what you had previously. When you say squeezing that out of the what you do have, is it really on the Navy side, is it kind of a dirty word that the contractors do need to make a profit, or else there won't be any contractors? How do you view that as on the procurement side?
Well, we use a phrase in the Navy, and it's called sustainable competition. So we're not looking for competition to squeeze contractors' margins. We're looking for them to be fairly compensated for performance, and for them to be there to bid next year, because without them there to bid next year, we have no ability to produce tools for the warfighter.
And continuity is good.
Well, continuity can be good.
Yes.
I believe continuity of performance is even better than simply continuity.
The right kind of
Absolutely.
Performance, yes. Elliott, for members of our audience, there may be many people watching this morning, large contractors, small, subcontractors and primes, who are thinking they've got to look at, are they going to be staying in this marketplace, are they going to diversify? And also there are companies looking to say, should I get into government procurement at all? What's your advice to somebody trying to enter the market and for current contractors?
Well, this is very simple. I don't believe the government picks winners. I believe the winners pick themselves.
In what way?
Well, winners look at what the government's needs are and what the government is valued. I mean, we try to express that to the best of our ability in our requests for proposals, our RFPs, especially in Section L&M. So the key for any company, large or small, is to match its value proposition with the things that the government values.
In other words, look at what that RFP is stating and what you need and what you want, and not be stepping outside the box.
If you can step outside the box in a way that allows you to provide, the government what it's looking for, by all means.
Even more creatively.
Exactly, even more creatively. We had an episode. It's part of our history now. When the Cold War was over and the wall fell down, the Soviets tied their submarines up at the pier, and our resource people said, well, then you don't really have a need to modernize the submarine fleet in terms of their combat systems. And in that initiative, some colleagues of mine, some very, very bright people said, well, we've got to continue to modernize the fleet, but we're going to leverage the opportunities the marketplace provides now. We have all this commercial off-the-shelf technology, smaller footprint. We're a smaller part of that market than the commercial sector. So how do we leverage commercial technologies and the real gifts of the smaller companies in this area to modernize a combat system fleet? And that led to what we call the Acoustic Rapid COTS Insertion Initiative. And it's that initiative.
And that's helped small businesses tremendously.
Small businesses immensely, but as importantly, it's helped the submarine fleet.
In what ways?
Well, that used to be my business. I bought submarine combat systems for the Navy, and when I bought them under the old rubric, we had about 5 different baselines across our submarine fleet. And that is now necking down to a single baseline, regardless of the submarine type, with more capability.
Because of ingenuity and creativity and technology from the small businesses in the marketplace?
Ingenuity, creativity, technology from the small businesses, and a difference in our relationship with those businesses. So we not only have a different relationship with the small businesses, but we have a different relationship with the large businesses who happen to be in that market space. And we went to them and we said, you have to do something fundamentally different for us. You have to act more as our trusted agent and help us shepherd this innovation from small businesses. And it's been a great partnership for a number of years.
And you've been very successful for that in the Navy. How do you think maybe other agencies could duplicate how successful you've been?
Well, I'm not a fan of duplication.
Okay.
I'm a believer that one adapts, not adopts, because every organization that we have has a different mission, they have a different history, they have a different set of dynamics.
So complete tailoring that would be very, very different.
Absolutely,
yes.
but you want to look at some of those things, and I think there are some gems there. You know, we do a course down at the University of North Carolina in which we look at our government-industry relationship, and one of the things we often talk about is flexibility down there. You know, how does the government maximize its ability to get value by keeping its options open? So other government agencies can look at what they buy and how they buy it and say, what's the best path for us to get what we need and keep our options open to both changes in technology as well as changes in the marketplace.
And be as flexible as the Navy is.
Yes.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Although it's said of us that we're 235 years of tradition unimpeded by progress.
Oh. That's... Elliott, many of our viewers may recall we've actually had an entire program specifically on bridging the chasm. We've had different views on. From your perspective, and you've been on the government side for many years now, do you think that chasm is widening or is it getting narrower? And what are the reasons?
Well, I really don't believe that there is a chasm.
You don't? Wow.
No, I don't. So what I believe happens is what happens in almost any economic transaction where two parties are involved. There is a continuum search for equilibrium. And there are times when we get out of equilibrium and we swing back into equilibrium. And I think we're simply going through one of those adjustments. And I think one of those adjustments is driven by the fact that we aren't going to have the dollars that we have. And
it's creating friction.
Well, it's certainly creating, it's creating, it may be creating friction, but I think it's a healthy friction.
It is, yeah.
Because what it does for us is it causes us to look at our needs and look at them very, very critically, and to have a conversation inside the Navy about what we value. And what that's going to cause is that's going to cause industry to have to react to those things. And as the things we value change, to change their business models. And change is hard for both parties.
Yes.
Change is hard for industry, and change is hard for us. So one could see that as a moving apart, the relationship, the government and industry. I would argue that what it's really about is seeking a new equilibrium.
So in terms of that equilibrium, government contracting executives are watching and they're thinking probably, you know, so how do I adjust to what the Navy's going to do? Are you going to be publicizing that? How are you going to be working through that? When will industry know? And what are your plans for communicating that to our viewers and the industry in general?
Well, I think we have to start with the Department of Defense in general. And Mr. Kendall, who's our Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics, has just rolled out his Better Buying Power initiatives version 2.0. And so the Navy fully supports those Better Buying Power initiatives.
And he was at the NCMA conference recently, and I think laid a lot of that out, talked about it being on the website. Yes, they made it very public. Yeah.
So we are in lockstep with the Secretary and his Better Buying Power initiatives. And you know, to speak from the perspective of my own boss, Sean Stackley, who is the Assistant Secretary for Research, Development, and Acquisition, it's about, you know, that initial statement. So it's about wringing every ounce of value we can from a limited pool of dollars. And he would tell you that we do that one program review at a time, one meeting at a time, one industry event at a time. So it's our intention to continue to come out to industry in fora like these and talk about, you know, what the Navy's goals and objectives are.
So industry will know what you're going to be doing with enough lead time, because there's always this right now consternation and concern about that industry has to forecast and they can't because they don't know what's going to happen.
Well, you know, forecasting is very tough, and as we introduce greater certainty into the budgetary environment, certainly that forecast will get easier. But you know, that is something beyond the control of the service. We have to react to that as much as anyone else.
Which
does.
is a national issue as a whole, coming down from the top. Yes. Elliott, there are lots of senior executives from large government contractors that watch the program, but we also hear from a lot of small businesses and small government contractors. Many of them are subs, of course, but they would like to have as much opportunity as possible. What are the things that the Navy is doing now to make opportunities available for small business? You mentioned COTS. What are the programs?
Well, I wouldn't say it's so much programs. And you know, if you look at how we buy, especially the Navy, we're very, very decentralized. And we have 10 of what are called heads of contracting activities, so 10 large organizations that do buying for different segments of the Navy. Not only that, but the people who formulate requirements really have a large impact on small business opportunities. So the secretary, the undersecretary has gone out and he is making small business part of what we call commander's business. So it's a communication to the senior leadership at large, whether they are part of the acquisition community or not. Simply, if they touch a resource, you have an obligation to make opportunities available for small business. So for example, we have 320 senior executives like myself across the department. And every one of those senior executives who touches a resource has a performance objective on small business. We're going in and we're reinforcing policy on small business, those things that are reserved under the regulations such as procurements between $25,000 and $150,000, we're saying those are reserved for small business. So you better have a very good reason for doing otherwise.
So it is out there, and on an individual basis, each senior government executive in the Navy. Yes.
Absolutely. So key to this is making this commander's business, and that's going to be our emphasis, in addition to improving our ability to see where those dollars are flowing. So we're working on several initiatives in that regard.
That's excellent to hear. And would you be able to point some of our viewers, if you said this is where small businesses should be looking in particular within the Navy?
Well, you know, small businesses should be looking anywhere where they believe they bring a value proposition.
So their niche, their expertise, something unique.
Exactly. Now, a lot of that's in services because the barriers of entry tend to be, you know, very low in terms of capital equipment. But I would say any small business who brings to the Navy an opportunity to, again, wring value out of that ever-shrinking pot of dollars is welcome.
Yeah. And innovation. Innovation, a track record, something the Navy can trust.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Elliott, I think if there's one thing that anybody watching today really would say they want, somebody who wants to win a contract really wants to have communication with a decision maker. They want access to a decision maker. What advice would you give our audience in terms of being able to speak to a procurement official, getting their attention, having a good dialogue with them? What do you think you would advise them how to go about that?
Well, I would say three things. First of all, I think two very good channels for us are individual organizations, small business specialists. Sean Crean, who is our director of the Office of Small Business Programs in the Secretary's office, is a tireless and relentless advocate for small businesses. If there is an option for small business, then Sean and his people will pursue that. I think the second avenue is competition advocates. Every buying organization has a competition advocate. So if folks believe they have an ability to insert competition into the system, or they don't believe they're getting a fair hearing, I would recommend that people contact activity competition advocates. I serve in that capacity for the Department of the Navy. I'm the Navy's competition advocate. The third thing that I would say is that you really have to network. It's about networking. So we have a requirement to go out and do market research. We try to do that as best we can through trade shows, through conferences, through technical interchanges. So watch for those. Watch the Federal Business Opportunities page for people who are doing market research and source of thought to try to get your identity, to get your products and services noticed by folks in the government.
So in other words, be out there, go to the trade shows, go to anything where a government procurement officer may attend.
Absolutely. I mean, this is not hard. It's really just hard work. I mean,
yes.
this is a tough environment today for businesses. But I would say if you can match up your value proposition with the things that we're going to value in the future, this is as good a time to enter the government contracting space as any.
What's a common mistake that you see government contractors make?
I would say that with respect to mistakes, it's not reading RFPs.
I mean, coming up with something that's esoteric and different.
Well, it's
or not following the requirements.
It's not so much, we have a saying, the first test, toward getting a contract is the ability to read instructions.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
not rocket science.
It's not rocket science. You read instructions, and you have to ask yourself, do what I offer, is what I'm offering today in the marketplace match up with this value proposition? And having been an employee of a small business in a past life, I can tell you when it comes to bidding those sorts of things, when those value propositions don't match up, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So even if you win, you possibly lose because you're not prepared to satisfy the customer's expectations.
And deliver what they want, or what the Navy wants, yeah.
Absolutely.
And so many companies have these boilerplate responses. They think they'll slap it on anything and it's a numbers game. Well, it isn't, because you're saying they're never being specific enough and they're never responding properly.
Exactly, and we're looking for that. And,
yes.
and when we see that, we say, hey, there's a weakness here.
Yeah, and actually that's BD 101, isn't it? Pay attention to the specific directions.
Pay attention, yeah. I tell my children that you can get a C in life by simply showing up and paying attention.
Yes.
If you can add value, that's a B, and if you have a great attitude, that's an A performance.
Right, and the same for the contractors.
You have to ask 4 questions. You have to ask yourself, what do you value? Okay, how does that value relate to industry, or rather to agency requirements? Number 3 is, how does it relate to agency requirements, and how much are you willing to value it? So there are some things.
So there's criteria around it. It's
absolutely
not as arbitrary as I think people think it is.
No, it is a thought process, and again, I go back to this idea of seeking equilibrium. So there are some requirements that we just understand better than we used to, and as we understand them better than we used to, we look at the things that folks offer us in the marketplace and go, that's just not necessarily worth a premium to us.
Elliott, thank you for being with us this morning.
My pleasure.
But I think our audience might want to know, given you have extensive background, you've really been in the Navy for many years, you've been on the government procurement side for many years, a little bit more about where do you think we've come from and where do you see us going? Well,
it's been a long and interesting journey. This is my 35th year in this business. And I think, number one, the people have gotten better. So much better.
Yes, in what ways?
I mean, they're better educated. They're committed to the mission. The issue that we have with the workforce today is that the workforce is green, but not that they are committed. I mean, the kids we're getting out of college are so much better trained than the workplace that I came into.
Are they better trained specifically on government procurement because they've had more education on that, or is it just their education level generally?
They're better educated.
Yes.
They are certainly better educated. We have made great strides, I think, over the last 30 years in professionalizing the workforce. Although I think we have a ways to go. I think there are things that we can do better.
What do you think should be done better?
Well, we've tested a great deal of what we call in the Navy time on station. I think we're going to have to move into an examination of proficiency. So it isn't just how much time you spent doing it, it's a question of whether you've spent that time doing it well. So we are starting to move in the direction of testing for proficiency as opposed to simply testing for experience. I think the technology has gotten better. I mean, our access to information is so much better than it used to be.
Speed and access.
Speed and access, and speed is another change. I mean, the world just moves so much more quickly than it did when I came into this business.
And we're generally hearing that government, although often criticized for being slow, really has picked up the pace, particularly in the procurement cycle.
Well, certainly in the procurement cycle, but just I think in general, I think in general there's a level of sophistication. Organizations are flatter than they used to be. So there are a number of things that have changed over the years. We've lost components of the industrial base. especially as we have gone out of the Cold War era and we have decreased the quantities of certain weapons we're buying. So we've had to think more carefully about how we maintain that sustainable competition, or how we maintain producers of certain goods and services. So there have been a number of changes that have happened in this business. I think we've gotten more transparent. Believe it or not, people might wonder about that. But when you go back 30 years and think that a lot of information people would have liked to have had access to was in file cabinets and was in the hands of people who were not accessible and was not on the web, and wasn't being shared by email, and the whole philosophy of debriefing contractors was very, very different. This is a very, very different world than we had.
You have a very positive attitude, which is healthy to hear, very healthy. What about for the future? Can you make some predictions? Where do you think we're going?
Well, it's hard to say where we're going, but I think one thing remains constant. At least on the government side, people do this work because they have a commitment to the mission.
A passion.
They have a passion, and more than a passion about this work, they have a commitment to the mission.
Of the nation.
So exactly, they're there to do the nation's business, and I don't see that changing. So I think we move forward in that, and I'm very, very comfortable.
And they say a lot of the young procurement officers have come into government after 9/11 with a special commitment for national security.
Absolutely. We talk about the political environment, and I think it's very, very interesting, because I will argue that if you go back into the history of this republic, we as Americans have this habit of holding a conversation once a generation about who we are as Americans, what we believe, and where we're willing to invest. And I simply think we're going through one of those periods of time. And as long as we continue to have dedicated public servants, who will focus on the work of governance, the country's in pretty good shape.
Well, thank you. And certainly the Fairfax Chamber at the GovCon Awards recognized that. I think a lot of the government contractors probably watching can now see why you received that award. So, Elliott, thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
Really, I think our audience gained a lot this morning. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome.
We love getting feedback from our viewers, and particularly those that offer great ideas. I'd like to share with you now some thoughts that were sent to us by Bill Hammer, albeit tactical, important points. Bill wants to remind us that many proposals are submitted by FedEx, so it's imperative that proposals be sent at least 2 days before the due date so that receipt can be confirmed, with there's only 1 day to spare. This allows for reshipping or hand delivery if for some reason the proposal was not received. Bill writes that if contracting officers knew and appreciated this, they could have all proposals that are due on Monday requiring shipments of proposals NLT the previous Thursday, which in effect robs contractors of several additional days of proposal preparation when needed. Proposal due dates falling on Wednesdays, Thursdays, or Friday are much preferred. Bill, I'm sure that many contractors are nodding their heads in agreement right now, and hopefully our friends on the government side will take this suggestion to heart as well. Please send your ideas and comments to me at Hillary's mailbag at the address below. Well, I hope that you found that what Elliott Branch had to say about the Navy, particularly his retrospective look, but also his prescription in terms of where the Navy is going, what the Navy is looking for, and how to win a contract with the Navy, very beneficial for you this morning. Hopefully you'll join us next week also.
You've been watching Government Contracting Weekly, sponsored each week by AOC Key Solutions Incorporated. Government Contracting Weekly is the only television program devoted exclusively to the competitive and dynamic world of government contracting. For additional information, comments, questions, or suggestions, please write us at governmentcontractingweekly.com.